Welcome to the Uptime Wind Energy Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Hall, along with my co-host, Joel Saxum. When we first discovered the software app Dispatch, Joel and I used it to find wind farms. But Dispatch is so much more than a wind map today. Dispatch is now widely used by operators for managing projects, handling forms, timesheets, apprenticeship tracking, and so much more. Our guest is Alex Jones, co-founder and president of Dispatch. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, Alan, thanks for having me.
So I went back into my Dispatch app and got access to the online computer version of the Dispatch app and was just astounded at all the advanced features you've added roughly over the last year. I think I picked up the app when we were in New Orleans at ACP, and it literally did use it to find wind farms, particularly with technicians on site that didn't know where their own wind turbines were. So it was really helpful there. But you want to talk about some of the things you guys are doing now?
Yeah, for sure. So this year at OMS, we launched a new product. On the safety side, we call it Oversight. And it really just gives asset owners and EPCs, really anyone who wants to come in, the ability to manage that site, add points, put in emergency documents, emergency contacts. And we've really gone long on that front. So we had one of our clients and utility partners kind of reach out, and they were making flyers for dispatch for fire departments, EMS, so on and so forth. And we were like, okay, explain what you're doing. And we've kind of turned that into a product now, and we've seen a huge surge in local first responders, emergency teams getting on. There's been a few incidents recently in the industry, and then you add in tornadoes and wildfires and all these other things. So people are looking to map, hey, I want to know where my tornado shelters are. I want to know local emergency response teams, phone numbers for emergency contacts, and then even things like helicopter landing points. So we now support adding all of those things to the map and then updating any information like about the site itself, adding documents, those sort of things. And so we've really seen that take off and become a part of site orientation for a number of asset owners and so on. And so, it's evolved into a pretty neat safety tool.
Yeah, I was thinking about this, I'm speaking from the mind of a traveling wind turbine technician, right? Because this comes from my oil and gas past. Every site you go on, every O&M building you visit, they hand you your sheet of paper. This is your ERP, your emergency response plan. This is where the tornado shelter is. This is where the O&M building is. Here's the closest hospital, all these different things. Well, now you have a living one that's in your phone. Every technician has their phone on them all the time. That's just a given, right? So then, and if there is a massive update, we're using a different thing, or we moved it because we've seen Alan, you and I have seen those moving tornado shelters, right? Basically, you just like pick them up on a truck and put them somewhere else. They're kind of crazy. That's a living document now, right? You're not scrambling, or you get in your truck and you're like, oh man, someone got bit by a snake. Who do I call? And you're going through the ERPs or in the visor or in, tucked away in the back of the seat or something like, oh, what's that phone number? Well, now you know you have it because you're on wherever you're at, XYZ wind farm, boom, there it is. That's fantastic. So the oversight part of the product gives people the ability to claim, hey, this is my wind farm, and then, hey, we're going to add all these different things in. They can keep it private, or is it all public, or how does that work?
Yeah, so a few different ways we have the ability. So we're rolling out pretty soon the site check-in capability. So anybody who's physically on site will get access to a little bit extra. And then you can't have company documents, company forms. So one of the things that we're working towards is, right now our form tool allows you to have sort of a single pane of glass. So the idea is any vendor, any technician that comes to your site, you're getting full tracking of every work order, every QA QC document against a turbine, and all of that just being a nice standard way that you don't have to have PDFs and CSVs and all those things flying around for every internal and external vendor. And then to some degree, it allows a number of these companies, as they move to self-perform, to just improve their ability to do that. They're not locked into some tool or have their data behind a paywall if they pick one partner or the other. And then we've seen a large adoption with EPCs lately. Just they want to map laydown yards, roads before they're there. One of those stories we had was getting a gearbox or a nacelle delivered to the wrong tower. Now you've got cranes sitting idle, you've got folks sitting idle, and it's like, okay, I've got to go find a flatbed, get them to come back out here, pick it back up, and move it a quarter of a mile. And by the time you're done with that, it's like, okay, we had 2 days of everybody kind of twiddling their thumbs, waiting around for one thing to move. And so, that's been a nice use case. I think the safety side is really where we've seen the most uptick. But now with all this new build growth, it's a frantic phone call or text message of like, hey, why isn't this site in dispatch? And it's like, you're literally building the laydown yard right now. Like, I don't know how you thought we would know that.
But I mean, that if you're killing those inefficiencies, right? Those are the things that just plague large projects. Rosemary on the podcast always talks about the book of how big things get done. But there's some practical use to that, right? Logistics and efficiencies on site, because in this world too, I mean, you may have, like you say, you have an EPC contractor out there. Okay. There may be 20 people on the site when it starts, and by the time that thing is over with, there may have been 500 different people roll through that site in 6 months if you're building a wind farm. From 5, 10, 15 different subcontractors and all these different people. So knowing that they're all on site, they have a live map, basically a customized version of Google Maps to get around the site, know where to put things, know what to do. I mean, killing the inefficiencies, that's huge. I'm saying this because we had a conversation with Heli Service USA yesterday, and it was all about how can we tackle inefficiencies in offshore wind. That's what their goal is. Like, you guys are doing the same thing, but for onshore wind, tackling those inefficiencies.
Yep. And we've seen some interesting things come out of it. We've had a few sheriffs let us know that, and I had never put myself in the position of a local sheriff, but if a angry landowner calls and says there's a loud turbine or one leaking oil, it kind of becomes, I guess, their responsibility to track down who owns this turbine, where's the O&M building, this, that, the other, and they may have received some onboarding documentation, but they kind of have to track all that down. So we've got a handful of sheriff's departments that really like the fact that they can, open up the app, figure out who owns it, where the O&M building is. And then some feedback from our folks have been, the construction O&M building and the operational O&M building may be different. And so vendors are calling and they're like, hey, I think I'm here. And really they're at the, O&M building from the construction phase. And then it's 30 minutes, all these sort of silly things that happen just day over day over day.
Let's talk about the IRA bill and what it means for keeping track of your employees and the apprenticeship piece of that. It does seem like the paperwork requirements have grown quite a bit, and knowing who's doing what and where they're at on top of it. I understand I don't have employees in that situation. However, I was noticing on the app you can actually track that now.
That's right. Yeah. So we sort of got thinking of, hey, we've got these really interesting site maps. We know where every tower is, where assets are, so on and so forth. How do we tie that into making IRA compliance easier? And so as you traverse counties, the wage determinations for what you're supposed to pay people for prevailing wage change. And so, if you have a time card, 1, we've got geocoding on the time cards. And then 2, if someone logs time to a particular tower, we know what county that's in. And it's not like there's a sign on some of these Clichy roads that you've just entered Lincoln County. But that has implications. The wage determination and rate you're supposed to pay people can change. And there's even sites that cross state lines, which adds to the complexity. So our view was, if we're going to actually achieve the clean energy goals that we've set out, we need to find ways to make sure that there's a really wide tint of folks who provide those services. And so when you think about, crane operators who have, a single admin who's doing payroll, doing invoicing, doing all those things, and that person now has to figure out all the hoops and complexities that come with prevailing wage, it becomes dizzying. And quite frankly, some of them just say, pound sand, I'm not going to, take this work because the headaches are too much. And so we've done things from, every single state and province level overtime calculations are out of the box, doing those at a day level, this, that, the other, really just making it as turnkey as possible so that folks can comply. And the adoption's been really exciting. We've seen a bunch of folks getting on, particularly on the smaller vendors, and adoption amongst EPCs. And then kind of surprising to us is we've kind of gotten pulled into hydrogen and CCUS projects, and now even projects that are getting transmission funding via the bipartisan infrastructure law are required to comply with some of the same prevailing wage and apprenticeship ratios. So we're quickly going to where clients are asking us to go, but the dizzying requirements and compliance checkboxes you got to hit We're just trying to make it a lot easier for everybody out there.
Let me ask you this one, the CCUS project. So for people who don't know what those are, it's carbon capture, and underground storage and sequestration for some people. But so in those projects, I mean, what are they? What employees? What are they tracking? How does that work?
So a number of sites where they're building out, entire pipeline networks, going from a CO2 source and then to an actual injection site, building some of the injection, sites themselves. And so crossing a ton of different counties, a lot of folks working on there between, folks delivering the actual steel for the pipes, inspecting welds, welding, so on and so forth. And so end of day, the technology we've built allows you to comply, whether it's a hydrogen electrolyzer, whether it's a, CCUS project, and then transmission very similarly, if you think about SunZia, how many counties that would touch, you've got these just mega projects where if you're the average payroll clerk and you're supposed to know exactly what county every hour of every work day was spent for each individual employee, it's like, yep, never mind. I don't want to do this. Kind of gotten ahead of what we think are the biggest audit risks. So, on the apprenticeship side, what we do is there's a number of tools out there, but none of them really have the ability to work across vendors. And so since we've got, right now we're at roughly 26,000 users on Dispatch. We believe that represents in excess of 80% of the, wind and solar techs in the US and Canada. But, if somebody's working on a project and they are an apprentice working alongside a journeyman in another company, you can have your DOL apprentice logged hours verified by a journeyman from another company. And all of that rolls up so that both the employer can see it, the EPC can see it. And then if you have a separate apprentice sponsor, so if you have a community trade organization, someone like Airstreams coming in and being your apprentice sponsor, they're handling the DOL logs, all of that jazz, in conjunction with the employer that's supposed to report that up to the EPC or the asset owner, so on and so forth. And so we've really just smashed all of that into one pane of glass. And now you're getting that reporting every single day instead of looking at it 4 or 5 weeks in the rearview mirror of like, hey, we've been out of compliance for the past month. That I think is making things a lot easier. And then, when we were talking with the Department of Labor, their quick audit check seems to be, hey, give us all of your DOL apprentice logs and then, dump us your payroll logs. And let's find the weeks where someone was on PTO and R&R and yet they log some apprenticeship hours. And since a lot of the existing solutions in the market aren't your timekeeping / payroll or whatnot system, when they start to find those little red flags, that's when you get invited to a multi-year audit. And I think that's what everyone's trying to avoid. So, we've made it so that after you do your time card, you're only able to allocate those overtime eligible hours. So, your jury duty hours, PTO, bereavement, you can't allocate more than what you actually worked. And then you can get that verified by anyone, whether they work at your company or at another company.
So the adoption rate's very high, but there's like another roughly 20% that hasn't adopted the Dispatch app, which is astounding, quite honestly, because every technician that I have run into over the last year is using it. And so for those who haven't downloaded the free app, what should they expect to see on their phone when they download the app?
Yeah, so when you download the mobile app, both on Google and Apple App Store, you get a full map of every single, wind, solar, battery, site, Met Tower, EV charging station that we can find in US, Canada, and Mexico, and then the ability to dive down into those, see individual towers, makes and models of those towers, and then increasingly information about, site contacts, emergency procedures, so on and so forth. And so all of that kind of map feature really drives a lot of the, I found this cool product. It saves me a bunch of time. And then we also do, if you put in like your GWO ID, we'll pull in all your certs, and we've mapped, call it 300, 400 or so industry standard certs that you can upload, and it'll give you reminders when those are going to expire. And then if you go onto the website, you can claim any one of the sites that you like and make edits, update tower numbers, this, that, the other. And so right now, we get we review all the edits, but the internet has not broken us, so I'm excited about that. Techs just are passionate that this is actually Tower 9, not Tower 8, and they'll go in and fix that. But no one's come in and graffitied any tower data so far. So
the last time we had you on the podcast, Alex, you were at like 4,000 people signed up, and you said a little bit ago you're at 26,000 now. So, I mean, that's six and a half times ish growth. That's huge.
Yeah, we really haven't spent any money on advertising. It's been word of mouth from the folks in the field. And, as soon as we start seeing that, trailing off, we probably need to go, figure out what else we can do to make tech's lives a little easier. But right now, that organic growth is the biggest compliment in my world.
So, Alex, what should the ISP or operator expect in the back office? Because there's a lot of back office people now using Dispatch to manage their projects. What does that look like?
Yeah, so you can build out a project inside Dispatch. You can invite your vendors to join as different subcontractors, and then you get real-time visibility into the hours that are being logged, the apprentice logs as they come in, the ratios across the project, and then the ability to export just a bunch of data that export and or directly integrate with your payroll system, information about daily overtime hours according to every single state level, overtime calculation, and all of that just coming in a nice, neat package. So you don't necessarily have to jump payroll providers in order to comply, or all the sort of hoops that people are going through today. And then the ability to push in all of your payroll data. We do a bunch of different calculations that I have a lot of gray hairs to attest, that do fringe benefit calculations and hourly rate calculations so that you can then submit certified payrolls and WH-347 documents and this, that, the other. And
does that then have from a site supervisor's standpoint, there's, as you can well imagine, right? Every site supervisor, particularly these large sites, they've had 20, 30, 40, 50 plus people on site every day scattered around dozen miles or more. What does the site supervisor use Dispatch for today? Because it seems so powerful.
Yeah, so site supervisors can come in. When you sign up for Oversight, we kind of do a heavy-handed initial onboarding. So we go through like, hey, let's check this road network. Are there any minimum maintenance roads that you don't think fire trucks or ambulances can get through? We'll go edit those so that we're not navigating someone down the wrong roads. And then they're able to go in, edit all the points, all the information and data there. They can go create new forms, upload documents that are available for anyone who comes to that site, and then visibility into at least their folks as they're on site. So, last known locations for all of those folks. So if you do have the, tornado alert or whatnot, it's more than just walkie-talkies. It's like, hey, I need to make sure that I count noses or whatever you want to think of it as, where I don't know where Bob is or whoever might be still lingering on site.
Yeah, it's really key. And we have seen a number of really bad storms. And I know the first thing everybody's trying to do is, where is everybody at? Is everybody okay? Getting that heads up, and Dispatch can help with that. That's fantastic. So what does the future look like for Dispatch? You've grown it so quickly over a wider, basically project management area. Where's the push now? Where are the requests coming from, and what does that look like?
So real-time lightning alerts, adding that into Oversight. And then we think that the way some of the products today approach it is a little odd. So we think of, what is the duty of care of somebody when they show up to your site? So if you're an asset owner, it doesn't really matter what logo someone has on their shirt. You want to make sure that they're safe and taken care of. And so our view is, if a site is subscribed to Oversight, anyone who shows up to that site would get lightning alerts, just provided to them as a function of being there. And then for folks that want to sign up as a company, our thought would be, no matter what site they're at, they're able to get site alerts.
I'm thinking about a nice, like if you're a site supervisor, anybody that has logged into your site can get push notifications and stuff from this. That's huge.
Yeah. So that's on the near-term horizon, and then we're just chasing down a number of the long-term maintenance efforts. So how detailed some of that stuff can get.
So there are two ways to download Dispatch, right? There's a way to download it on your phone, and then there's a desk-based version, laptop-based version. Can you explain how to get to both of those?
Yeah, so mobile app is on both Google Play and Apple Store. You can download it, Dispatch, no vowels, DSPTCH. Totally free to use, navigation, profiles, certs, all that fun jazz. And then on dispatch.app, you can go on the website and claim a site, poke around, see some of the functionality we have around forms and jobs and timekeeping, and see what you think.
It's such an amazing piece of software, and you've done great things with it. And just by the adoption rate alone, it tells you it is making a real mark on the wind industry and associated industry, carbon capture, which is great. That's fantastic. And as things continue to grow, you got to come back and keep us informed, because it's a really cool thing, and it has made tremendous changes in the wind industry, and that's good. Thanks, Alex, for being on the program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for having me.